goodness. Big move Monday. Look out. A way to end the tournament.
So what's happening, people? Welcome back to the Quad Pod, sponsored by Poseidon Strength and Adidas Wrestling. Make sure you're using our discount codes at checkout when you visit our awesome sponsors. All that info is below. As always, it's great to be joined by Robbie, Austin, and Kevin. I am Holmes, and we appreciate you listening to episode 34. This is the Charles Barkley episode. I don't know why you would ever think that it would be anything else. I'm just kidding. It's the Walter Payton episode. We're going to stick with football, even though Charles Barkley is the man as well. Big Barkley fan. But last week we had CKLV that went down, along with a whole host of dual meets that we'll talk about, or at least some upsets that we'll dig into. And then we'll also talk about some of the crazier things that happened, the stall calls, the forfeits. What else was in there? Kevin Jack heading off to IMG as well. So we'll talk about a good host of things during this episode, and then on Thursday you'll get a what's coming, and that's where we have a new segment, because we've got some betting men on this podcast that will talk about where they're placing their bets. We'll also get into some really good dual meets that are going to be coming up too. But to kick things off, we always do the weigh-in, and for my weigh-in, I am going to give a shout out to the one and only Neil effin Arisman. And it is that man that got a contract extension, a 5-year contract extension at Little Rock. He deserves it. He puts in a lot of time. It was awesome to see him develop guys like Nasir Bailey and have him get on the podium while he was at Little Rock, along with some of those other coaches. But shout out to Neil Arisman for getting the contract extension. As I said, he really deserves it. You see the man put in a lot of work, and he's also not afraid to call people out on trying to poach some of his wrestlers as well. So love that guy. He's always awesome every time I get a chance to speak to him, and absolutely deserves the shout out. Austin, on to you.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out. Bit of a homer shout out. I was at the Drexel match on Friday. They wrestled Penn State. We mentioned that last week. It was really eye-opening for me, because obviously I wrestled there for 4 years, coached for a year, did the broadcast for a few years after that, and I've never seen a gym, the Drexel gym, so packed for a wrestling match. It was a really cool atmosphere. Penn State really brings the fans, and it got me just kind of thinking, Penn State got a lot of shit for not going to the national duels, the national duels invite that happened in Tulsa. But when they come to a smaller school like Drexel or, whoever, they're going to put butts in the stands, so, that program may not realize it. Some of the fans at home may not realize it, but in a roundabout way, they are kind of growing the sport, because I saw a lot of people there that would probably never go to a Drexel match, but because Penn State was there, their kids wanted to go. So it was a great environment for them to watch some wrestling. And, I saw kids wearing Penn State wrestling hoodies, and they were taking pictures next to the dragon statue out in front of the gym, right? So it might be a cool memory for them, and maybe they'll come back, so that's why teams like Drexel and schools like that, they schedule Penn State, because it puts butts in the seats, brings people out, and it's just a really cool environment to showcase what they're capable of putting on there. They made a really big deal of it, obviously. So it was just a cool night. And it was a little eye-opening for me, as someone that's been in the trenches of Drexel wrestling for a while now, to see something like that come to life, and all the hard work they put into it. It was really cool to see, and it was nice seeing some of the wrestlers from Penn State, signing autographs, shaking hands with the young fans and stuff. They kind of realize that they're part of growing the sport too in a different way. So shout out to Penn State wrestling, shout out to Drexel wrestling. Put on a good event. Penn State did whoop them up, which was expected, but again, you don't really schedule that match expecting to win. You just schedule that one, like I said, get people there and put on a good fight. So shout out to Drexel and Penn State for a good event there.
Yeah, it looked like a great atmosphere when you sent us the picture. It was pretty awesome to see that. So
yeah,
great job by both teams. As you said, you don't really schedule that one looking to notch a win. I mean, obviously you go out wanting to win, but you're kind of pushing a snowball up a really hot hill when you're facing Penn State. So it just kind of is what it is. But like you said, awesome atmosphere, and it's definitely warranted for a shout out. Robbie, on to you.
Yeah, Penn State's actually going out to Laramie to face Wyoming this week. Kind of same idea. Wyoming was out there last year, and they're returning the favor and going out to a school that normally wouldn't get a Penn State to come visit. So I think that'll be really good. It should be a good turnout there. Wyoming had a good weekend at CKLV. Got some great stuff to build on. I mean, Branch is doing an awesome job there, and they've always got some good things happening. But it'll be good to see them have a big squad like what Penn State to get some butts in the seat at elevation there. We'll see how much of an impact that makes on those lungs. My shutout is going to go to Stanford. Hell of a weekend at CKLV. Had 5 guys place. Provost back for first time this year. Still don't know how much I'm allowed to say about it. He had some crazy health stuff last year, and I'm personally just really glad to see him back healthy and able to compete at the level that we know that he's able to compete at. He had a great weekend. His only loss was a really close one to Maximo Renneria, and otherwise he came back. It was 5-1, got 3rd place. Tyler Knox was looking good. Medically defaulted out after a tough loss to Kyler Larkin. Jack Consiglio had a fucking phenomenal weekend. When Aiden Valencia moved up to 49, we kind of thought there was going to be a hole at 41. They weren't sure who was going to fill that and what it was going to be. But, man, Consiglio went out and he beat some ass this weekend. Tech fall, major, 7-point decision. His only loss on the weekend was to Echemendia. He has ranked wins over Grayson Clark, Tyler Wells, and Lorenzo Frezza. So 3 ranked wins in his first weekend. And the starting lineup, placing 3rd at CKLV, is pretty damn good. Aiden Valencia placed 5th. Daniel Cardenas had a good weekend, placed 3rd. Hunter Garvin didn't wrestle, so they're without one of their All-Americans. And Lorenzo Norman, which I was told should be back for collegiate duels. So great weekend. Then Angelo Posada at 197 had a great weekend too. Won the most falls in least amount of time. He's a true freshman. 5-2. His only losses were to Bennett Berge 3-1 and Rademacher 7-4. He beat Rune Lawrence, so he got a ranked win on the weekend, and just great weekend for him. All around great weekend for Stanford. Glad to see them on a roll, getting some good momentum going into break.
Nice. Launch, bring it home.
A couple things. We talked Adidas Wrestling already, but I will shout out the HVCs because they've got some new colors going up. This is not a new color. But check out adidaswrestling.com. Use the promo code QB25 and get 25% off. They've got some pretty awesome colors in those HVCs, so don't miss those. Also, I wanted to shout out this weekend. We went down to Ohio to visit my niece Vivian and her brothers and sisters, and in fact my nephew was in a play as well. Point being, they were in Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, which was awesome. It was like the claymation one that they did, but like it was actually like in play version. So she was.
Did they move all slow? Like
no, they were pretty fluid, but no, she was Yukon
man.
Cornelius. So she was like the prospector who like is yelling and screaming about silver and gold. So that was pretty badass. And I bring that up only because obviously this is a wrestling podcast and wrestling is hard. It's hard to put on singlets and go out there and compete. And it's also really hard to do other stuff too, So shout out to anybody in whatever form or fashion they're doing to push themselves out of their comfort zone and to try some new shit because it's pretty cool. And it was really, really well done. And I was really proud of her and Teddy for doing that. Speaking of Rudolph, wrestling on the youth level is getting started this weekend at Sparta High School. Rudolph's Round Robin is going to be going on, so I'm excited to get back into coaching and actually getting into the.
They love some alliteration.
They sure do.
Fantastic.
They sure do. So I'm very excited for the wrestling season to get going and to see how the competition. I don't know, we always feel like our kids look pretty good in the room, and then all of a sudden it's like, hand control, we can't get out, and we're pinned. Okay. So
a little work on.
Yeah, we'll work on those things. That's you learn more from losses than wins. That's what they say. As you walk off the mat after a loss.
That's why I'm so smart.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, that's how I'm really good at getting off my back, guys. I promise. I've had 10,000 hours of practice. But no, that's it. Shout out to all those things.
That's the family friendly version of, or at least like segment of our show. I love how you went from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer into a wrestling with Rudolph. So nice segue.
Worked
I like
out
it.
well.
It really did work out well. Um, so Robbie got us started with our CKLV talk. So let's jump into it. And I am going to come back to Robbie. I know you gave a shout out to Stanford. Um, any other ACC teams that were there, or anyone that just kind of caught your eye when it came to either overperforming, underperforming, or doing exactly what any of us predicted in last week's show?
I mean, ACC wise, Virginia Tech sent a really small team out. Dylan Campbell looked great. Colin Gosh looked great. Colin Gosh, God damn it. Colin Guy. I was reading his name as I said that. Colin Guy looked great, had a good win. Both of them placed. But I mean, Dylan Campbell just continuing his fantastic start to the year, and he's really putting it together. And we weren't sure, kind of coming into the year. He was great in high school, great recruit, but we weren't sure what impact he was going to make and what level he was going to be at competing in the starting lineup. And silenced every doubter there is, and has looked just fantastic. He lost in the third place bout to Ferrara, and that was honestly probably his worst match of the tournament. Otherwise, even his semifinal loss was close. So
it's a good match.
Good stuff going on there. But I mean, the underperformer that a lot of people are pointing to is Lachlan McNeil. Not ACC anymore, but I mean, I don't know. He had one bad loss, and I'm not taking too much stock away from him at this point. He's a 3-time All-American. He'll figure it out. I'm not too concerned about that.
Yeah, but I mean, like we said before, he just looks uncomfortable. Like it just doesn't, like he's still trying to get his feet under him or figure out who he is in a Michigan singlet, right? Instead of just going out and wrestling. But like I don't know. It just looks like something's not connecting for him. Like the confidence that he used to have isn't there. He's losing matches and matches that you wouldn't think that he would be losing, or he's in close ones. So I understand, like, you don't want to take anything away from a multiple time All-American. But at the same time, that multiple time All-American does not look like the same guy. So he's got plenty of time to figure it out. But like, looking at his body of work this year, he doesn't look like the same person. He doesn't look comfortable. I mean, I know we've talked about Richie Figs and we've talked about Nasir Bailey in their weight classes and looking uncomfortable or looking not big enough or anything else. It's not, I don't think it's a big enough thing, but like all these guys who we have seen on the podium or close to the top of it or on the top of it, like Richie Figs, they just look out of place. They don't look like they're confident in what they're doing. And Lachlan is one of them. He just continues to have these matches where they're just kind of head scratchers. So Kevin, I'll come to you. I mean, Michigan guy, you think that you get a stalwart in your lineup as a Michigan fan, but he continues to fall and trip over himself as a Michigan guy. And you've obviously seen them close up as you've called some of their matches. What do you make of his performance this weekend? And do you feel like Michigan maybe pivots at some point and maybe not take him out of the lineup, but maybe just like give him a break?
I'll answer the second question first. I don't think that's the case. I think that, I don't remember if it was last episode or which episode it was recently, but it was, and again, I don't know if this comment was directed towards him in particular, but I think in general, like if you're going to bring that many guys in year after year with the transfer portal, you got to kind of figure out what makes that person work, and what makes them, what works for them as far as the coaching and when to push them and when to lay off and that sort of thing. So, and I think that aspect of coaching is maybe overlooked sometimes, right? He did spend 4 years, or was it just the 3 years with North Carolina? So you're kind of used to a certain routine and everything. You see some injuries and things like that too. I don't know if he's hurt or what, but he clearly does not look. This is probably not what you expected when you brought him in. Now, I'll also say this too. Remember when Shane Griffith went to Michigan and he had like a loss to Lorenzo Norman, probably at the same tournament for
It was
that matter.
at CKLV.
Yeah, and then people were like, "Oh man, what's going on with this guy? He's wrestling all these close matches, and it's crazy. Like, well, this guy was a national champ. Why isn't he just blowing everybody out of the water?" And it's like, well, maybe that's just not, how it worked. Now, I'm gonna kind of pivot this to Robbie. Like, you've seen Lachlan wrestle more consistently than I have. I've bitched over the years all the time about how I couldn't watch the ACC despite paying for practically every single damn streaming service you can get, but they would like fight each other.
I provided you my login many times.
You did. Thank you. But I mean, like, I don't know if this is just his style and it's just not, getting the results that we're looking for at this point, or if this is something else. But like, that's kind of like going back to the Shane Griffith thing. It was like, after a little while, I remember people were like, you know what, maybe we're expecting this certain thing, but actually this is just kind of how he's always wrestled his matches, was pretty close, and he would just win more often than he lost.
So that's kind of how I take it. I mean, you look back at his 3 years as a starter, and only 1 year did he ever have over 50% bonus rate. And most of those bonuses were against guys that weren't really competition for him. He's not a huge point scorer. I mean, he'll separate against guys he should separate against, which I think is the difference we're not seeing this year. We haven't seen him pull away from the guys that he should pull away from. And that maybe that's the eye test that people are seeing. But I don't see any concern. He had a close loss and then, kind of a blowout loss to go out of the tournament. But I think his head wasn't in it. And maybe that's just, he needs some rest. Maybe he's sick. Maybe there's a lot of things to it, but I'm not as concerned about where he's at as some people seem to be.
I think the other thing too is people love it when transfers don't do so well.
Mm-hmm.
People are so pumped about it. And so it's the case in every chance. When is somebody transferred and then struggled and we've been like, man, just give them a chance. Like, the general, message for most people is like,
should have stayed where you were.
Right.
Yeah, my counter to that is, and this is kind of how I feel about the transfer portal in general, why I'm much more supportive of it for like the Ivy League guys who don't have a chance to continue after their fourth year. He finished his degree at UNC and is legitimately at Michigan because they have a fantastic grad program in what he wants to do in business. And I mean, he has a degree from North Carolina. Now he's getting a master's from Michigan. I mean, that's exactly what we want people to do to further their education through wrestling, right? Isn't that kind of the big picture of what we want? So I don't begrudge him for that. I mean, he went through a coaching change and I know you're not saying that directly about him, but as a generality, but in specifically for him, he went through a coaching change at UNC and wrestled for a year, maybe two under Cole. I don't remember. Everything blends together, but I mean, why not give it a shot? Go to the Big Ten for a year and see where you're at. Like I said, I'm not as concerned as some people seem to be, but we'll see. I think it'll all shake out. I mean, he's made the podium every year. I don't see that being any different this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And how much of this is like,
go ahead.
Maybe it's a Michigan thing too, where they're kind of slow rolling these older guys up. Like you mentioned, Griffith didn't have a great CKLV. We talked last week, Kellen Russell lost a true freshman and Hunter Stieber. Not looking back, not a terrible loss, but didn't Russell go on to win NCAAs that year? We talked about Stevan Micic almost getting teched by DeSanto. Fast forward to March, 3 months later, that's completely opposite, and he kind of beats the shit out of DeSanto, right? So
and there's just in the finals
this weekend to Carroll. I mean, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, there's not peaking right now, right? So maybe it's just how Michigan trains. It's, hey, March is what matters. We'll perform well if we can, but if not, oh well. We're going to come back in March.
So you're saying he's making the finals? I agree.
It's very possible. 149 it's not
pretty
really
wide open weight.
Yeah,
it is. Agree.
And to Claunch's point, like, people taking notice of how transfers perform once they're in their new school, it's become like a stat, right? Where everybody's like looking at these transfers and saying, well, did he underperform or overperform their last time out, right? And we looked at Nagao, we looked at Parco when he left Arizona State, and I'm sure. I mean, we have talked about Richie Figs. I already mentioned him earlier on, right? So like, and then the spotlight that's on Jordan Williams and Nasir Bailey at Iowa now, right? Everybody's like, what are they going to do? How are they going to perform when you see these guys? Because for the most part, let's call it what it is. Everybody thinks that you're leaving for a bag of money. And when you don't pan out in your new school, everybody likes to point to, well, at least your pockets are fat now when it comes to transfers. And Robbie, to your point, like Lachlan finished his degree. He's got time to, go to another school and continue to compete. So why not do that? Which we've seen a number of other guys. I believe Shane Griffith was kind of the same way. He probably finished at Stanford and was on to Michigan. Grad
2
program.
degrees from Stanford.
Yeah.
Stupid smart kids.
And then went to the Ross School of Business, and it's killing it.
I believe that's what Lachlan's doing as well.
Cardenas did that from Cornell too.
Same thing.
Last year. Had a great year. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I will say wrestling wise, I won't say that I'm not just like a little bit concerned about Lachlan, only because we've seen him perform at a high level. And even though, it's taking his lumps in a new singlet and a new team, to me, he just looks slightly uncomfortable, where he just doesn't look like he has the confidence. So not looking at it and trying to, make a mountain out of a molehill, but also looking at it and saying, he doesn't look like he has his legs under him just yet. He does look a little bit uncomfortable. He looks like he's kind of fallen off from where he was, and he can definitely rebuild. And I'm sure that in that Michigan room, he can certainly do that, because to Claunch's point, we've seen Shane Griffith do it as well. So I know, I think we just probably expected more. But back to the tournament as a whole, Iowa State, and I think, Robbie, it was you before we came on that said they were kind of the only team that brought a full lineup really to CKLV, which they've done a number of times. I know they really do go hard for CKLV, and as you should, as most teams used to. I was really impressed with everything that they did. And I know we talked about it before the tournament and saying they could potentially win another title. And they end up doing that. 183.5 points. They outlast Michigan with 99, and Stanford that had 97.5. So Iowa State, the CKLV tournament is a big deal for them. And being led by a number of guys, they had 4 guys, I think, win titles. Echemendia, Frost, Elam also won a title, as well as Bastida. So 4 guys. What do we think about Bastida, or not just Bastida, but Iowa State in general, and their outlook for the rest of the season, as we've seen them just beat Iowa and then have a really big standout performance at CKLV? Claunch, what are your thoughts on Iowa State?
They're peaking too early. They should panic. It's all going horribly wrong. No, I mean, they look great. I think, if you're, and we had talked about it beforehand, if you're a Cyclone fan, you got to be really pumped with the way that Rocky Elam looks. He looks fantastic. Younger Bastida, assuming he can stay healthy and ready to go, it looks as dangerous as any of the heavyweights could potentially look. I mean, we've already seen him beat Gadali up pretty good. We just watched him beat up Christian Carroll, who had one hell of a tournament and looks fantastic at heavyweight.
Yeah, he did.
I shouldn't say beat him up. He got him though.
He beat him 5-3. It was close.
Yeah, but I mean, he looked very much control of that match.
Yeah.
And
just
that's
not
a match
scoring 20 points like he did every other match.
Right. And again, this is against the dude who's been in the room with him, and I'm sure they've wrestled around together before, right? So let's not lose sight of the fact that those two, this isn't the first time they've locked horns, right? But But no, I mean, the Frosts look great. I mean, like, you know, if you're going to freak out, you can be like, well, Padiro Johnson didn't look all that good, but he's also one of those guys who just wrestles close matches, and they have as qualified a guy to step in and take the place as anybody does, you know, in the country to have another guy competing for a spot, which is a great thing to have. They just look really, really, really good. Steve O'Poulin will figure it out. You know, I'm not going to freak out about how he's doing. He's wrestling pretty well. He's lost to some kids who I think on paper he's supposed to lose to, right?
Yeah. Being fourth, I think, is right where he should be anyway.
You know, exactly. Yeah. And you know, you can make improvements as the year goes on too. So I don't really think, and you know, you hope Zurban's okay. I don't you know, don't know what the nature of the not wrestling the finals was, but you know, assuming they can keep the momentum going and the health going, I mean, this is a hell of a 2-week stretch for them. So,
yeah. Speaking of Steve O'Poulin, he loses to Nico Provo, and Robbie, you talked about Nico. What did you make of his performance this weekend, first time out, and seeing him back on the mat?
I think he looked great. I mean, he started off a little slow in his first match, but I think that's kind of to be expected. 25 was a decently deep weight compared to some other ones. So his first match was against what was this Columbia kid? Not Columbia. Yeah, Columbia. Ba. He won 4-1. Kind of looked slow, a little sluggish and not really committing. But next round he had tech fall, and then super tight match against McGowan in the quarters, which was a great test for him. And we've talked before about the year that Mark Anthony McGowan's having and how good he's looked. His loss to Renneria was a 1-point match, and then he beat Poulin. He blanked Poulin 7-0 for third. You think he kind of got his feet back under him and looked really good for the majority of the tournament. And he's going to definitely provide some much needed depth or an anchor at the bottom of that lineup too.
Agreed.
Especially the ACC. 25 is insane in the ACC.
Yeah. Just kind of like looking through results here and the, to go back to Iowa State, it completely just like left my mind that Etchemendia was as offensive as he was. I mean, he scored double digits in every single match except for the final against Eli Griffin where he won 6-2. And we mentioned if the same Etchemendia shows up that we had just seen at Iowa the week prior, he was going to be really hard to beat. And the crazy thing for me is that, one, we didn't expect him to be back down at 41. He had said that he was going up, and we figured like 2 weight classes or something like that he'd be going up, and ends up going back down to 41. He's not, sorry, I don't see him winning a national title at 41. Sorry, Jesse Mendez is way too freaking good. But I definitely see Etchemendia being a contender and a guy that can be on the opposite side of him in the finals now with him being as offensive as he really has been. So I was really impressed with Etchemendia and how he has been, not just at CKLV, but over the last couple of weeks where we've seen how offensive he's being and how much risk he's taking and just really going at guys and making them wrestle his match and not theirs. And so I was impressed by him overall in the Iowa State lineup. And, we mentioned Elam as well. Elam looks really good being back on the mat. But back to that heavyweight match in the finals with Christian Carroll and, less about Bastida because obviously he's been in the driver's seat of this weight class for weeks now. I think most didn't expect Christian Carroll to come out and do the things that he's doing, or at least do the things that he did last week. Claunch, any thoughts around Christian Carroll? And Robbie, you too, I know you paid a lot of attention to Wyoming. Any thoughts around Christian Carroll and how he's starting to really show up right now in the heavyweight division?
I'm stoked. Like, I don't think anybody here ever had a doubt about his talent or ability at any level. I mean, he was a stud at Oklahoma State. And, if anything, it was just kind of the weird weight class thing. Like, really, 197 is like okay, like I guess maybe that's where you want to go. And I don't know if that was just to try to get in the lineup early as a freshman or what he was doing, but like point being, he was that talented to get in the lineup as a freshman or at least try to compete for a spot there. Obviously making the moves that he made and transferring to Iowa State, obviously something went down there. It didn't work out. He moves to Wyoming. So then really the only doubt is, I mean, sadly, it's kind of around like, well, is there character issues here or what's going on? But it seems like it was just bad fits and maybe he was choosing places for the wrong reasons. And obviously it was the coaching stuff that happened at Oklahoma State. And so I'm just happy for the kid. It seems like it's a good spot for him. He's wrestling really, really well. And this is what you kind of wanted to see out of the guy when he first showed up on the scene. I don't remember what tournament it was, but where like he kind of goes down and does like the flex thing, and then he like feels bad because he didn't know he couldn't do that, and like he's apologizing to the ref. Like, that seems like forever ago, but like, yeah, the kid is a stud of a kid, and I'm happy for him.
Yeah. Robbie, your thoughts on Carroll?
I think it is a fit thing. I think he's in a place where he feels comfortable now. And I mean, when you talk about Wyoming, you talk a lot about the culture of the program that Mark Branch has built there, and how it does kind of take a special fit of a wrestler. I mean, an athlete in general to go to Wyoming. It's an interesting school. It's Laramie's a tough place to live. You're wrestling at 7,000 feet. Elevation is certainly something to actually consider for your training. And I mean, I think Mark approaches it. I mean, he talks about living cowboy tough and living the cowboy way, and it's a very real thing within their program. And I think Carroll really fits that. I think it's a good place for him. I think he feels comfortable. I think it seems like he feels at home. And I think that's a big part of what we're seeing right now and how comfortable he feels. And he's putting up points. He got Tech Falls in his first 2 rounds, beat the brakes off of Gadali and got a major against him. His close matches, I mean, he had a close win in the semis against the Nazca, who's been damn good this year, has 2 wins over Pitzer. And that was in sudden victory, but he, dug deep and got that takedown. And then a close 5-3 loss to Bastida, who has kind of blown everybody out of the water this year. So I think he's in a really good place. And I mean, he's certainly somebody to keep an eye on for the rest of the year.
Sure. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I want to look at the schedule. Does Wyoming and Wisconsin wrestle? Because I really want to see Christian Carroll and Braxton Amos hit the mat against each other, because I think that'd be a really good one. Both guys have had
awesome.
Yeah, both guys have had very close matches with Bastida. Bastida beat Amos, I believe it was 5-4 or something like that, and obviously a 5-3 win over Christian Carroll. I'm looking at those guys in the heavyweight division and thinking they can place very high, honestly, if both stay healthy, right? We've seen, I know that obviously Braxton has had his issues in the past with dislocated shoulders and everything else. I think going up is only going to help him because he's got more weight and more strength behind that shoulder. But him, Braxton and Christian Carroll, I am looking forward to that one if it happens.
Well, that's almost a contrast of styles too.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Amos being such a big Greco guy, we know he can shoot too, but like, really what was so impressive about Christian Carroll was how he was getting in on shots and finishing those shots with a lot of power that, just the athleticism that you really don't see at heavyweight or had previously not seen. We have seen it over the last couple of years, certainly, but yeah, that would be a fun one.
Austin, I want to bring you in. Obviously, a lot of good came from Columbia and Cornell. What were your thoughts on their performances over the weekend?
Well, I mean, Jackson Joy is really good on top, and we saw that with just the way he's setting up that cradle with that far leg in, and he's kind of reaching for like a bar, and then he hooks up the cradle, and he hit who was in the semis a bunch of times with Larkin.
Larkin, yeah.
In the semis, like 4 different times with it, the same freaking move. And Larkin's obviously a really good wrestler. To get caught in the same move 4 times in a row is you're doing something right. And I think Joy, and when Cornell gets that full lineup second semester, they're going to be really good, bringing Shapiro back and in Unger will be back, and Greg Giacomahala should be back then, and Cornella. So the bottom of the lineup is going to be, lights out. Columbia, they had a few good placers there, where they finished, and what is that, 15th place, something like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 placers overall. Pretty good weekend for them.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the highlight for them was James Conway.
Yeah, for FNM. Yeah, that's yeah, and you guys know I've been on that train since the beginning of the year now, and talking about him being a dark horse, and I think that train is kind of left of him being a dark horse. I think he's a legit contender to be an All-American now. Talking to Steve Borgia about it, he even tweeted it, said, "Hey, he's not a dark horse anymore. I'm sick of this crap. Give us some respect." I definitely think he earned it. We were talking here, and he took down Isaac Dean twice in one match, and a guy like Angelo Ferrari couldn't do that once in a dual meet. So that just goes to show you Conway can score, and he's going to try to keep scoring. Even if he's down by 14, he's going to keep coming at you. Just hard nosed, great worker. And, was he a biomedical engineer and has a 3.9999 GPA, something insane like that. So, just all around great kid. And someone was chirping on Instagram about the transfer portal come in and he's going to transfer, and he said, "I'd rather die. I love my team, FNM." So this goes to show the character. He's in it for the long run. Going to be excited for him. Putting a small program like FNM on the map. Really cool to see that. And he's our first CKLV winner, champion ever at that school. And he's going to make a lot of history this year, I think.
Yeah, and you really hope that he does stay, right? I mean, obviously, we don't think that he's going to, but he's
a senior this year, so he can't.
But like even just stays around and not only that, but just like does well this season, not just at CKLV, but continues to do well, because that's the kind of guy that you can point to and say he was developed here, right? And FNM obviously isn't well known for developing guys like that, so having him in that room and at least keeping him around the program, unless he goes and finds the cure for every disease out there known to man, because he's so friggin' smart. He's somebody that you really want to have around your program, because you're seeing him do all these things both on and off the mat. So incredible weekend for him. I just kept seeing highlights of him. I was at a charity event this weekend for my job, so I wasn't able to watch everything. But then when I had a chance to, I'm like, man, like, just absolutely stingy on defense, very good offense. I watched his final first and foremost, and you just see just how good he really wrestled this entire weekend. And you mentioned it, like he was able to take down Isaac Dean multiple times, where we saw how stingy Dean was up against Ferrari, and obviously you're up a little bit more for that match than you are for a match maybe against James Conway, but still in all, it's just impressive for him to put together the run that he put together and beat the guys that were mostly ranked ahead of him for the most part.
And for what it's worth, he's 3-0 against Isaac Dean. Isaac Dean was at Ryder, so they wrestled a bunch. It was 2-0 against him going into that match, and he's 3-0 against him now. So to beat a guy like that 3 times, it's got to be worth something.
Yeah. Any thoughts from you, Austin, on Ty Whalen or any other Princeton guy that was able to make the podium? I mean, Eli Rivera does get pinned by Jackson Joy in the finals, but any thoughts on their road to make the podium at CKLV?
Yeah, Rivera looked pretty good at 149. Wasn't really on my radar to make the finals, but he had a win over McNeil. We had a win over Frost at 49, and kind of got pinned by Joy there. So, they'll meet again in dual meet and then Ivies. I'm sure that gap will close. But yeah, Whalen looked good at 65 too. Just being able to go up 2 weight classes after a gray shirt year. Sometimes you take some lumps early on, but looks like he fits that weight class pretty well. He's a tall drink of water. He's filling it up, and another guy just wrestles hard. Just maybe a little unorthodox in certain positions just because he's so lanky. But I think Princeton had a pretty good performance overall.
Speaking of tall drink of water, is it
I agree.
Colley's heavyweight that is like 6'8"?
Drinker, yeah.
Yeah, Tinker. Yeah, he's a freak.
Ridiculous. So something else, and I mentioned that one because I was looking at his result and I was like, I think he's the heavyweight that's like, 6'8", but the result of a good amount of matches are medical forfeits, and people were going on and on and on about all these medical forfeits that happen, and guys forfeiting in the finals or anything else. Do you guys put any stock in the medical forfeits that happen, or is it just like at this point, just kind of par for the course? Claunch, what are your thoughts on the medical forfeits that we saw at CKLV?
I will share my thoughts on the medical forfeits, but before I do that, I want to shout out Richard Durso, aka Big Dick Durso, another Franklin and Marshall guy who definitely needs to be shouted out there. Anyway, initially it's like these count as losses on your record now at this point, right? Am I correct in thinking that? And is it just the first one? It's just the first one, yeah. And then you okay. I don't care if you want to medically redshirt out of the tournament at this point in the season. Like, I mean, I care as in like I would love to watch the wrestling, and that would be great. And it kind of stinks having two of the finals matches in a really big tournament end up that way. But these are losses that are going to count on your record, and I have to assume at some point when it gets down to it, like, most of these guys are probably going to make the tournament anyway, but it can and should affect your seeding. If they're trying to figure out where to put one guy versus another one, and then there's this loss on the record, like, I like to think that they're not going to go, oh, well, it was a medical forfeit, so like, we can't actually put stock into that. No, you kind of should, because that's the whole point of this, right? So, I think that's kind of how it should go. I would love to watch everybody wrestle, but it would, like, ultimately, if you get Vinny Zerban out there who goes out there and hurts himself further and now he misses the rest of the season, like, that sucks more than missing this match at the Cliff King Las Vegas finals. Like, now, there's no way of telling whether or not that would happen, but if those are the decisions you're making as a coaching staff and as an athlete, then that's kind of how it goes. I like, none of these wrestlers are like, man, I made the finals. Sweet. I am done today. I am out. Mission accomplished.
And I'm not I don't like it either, but Waters and Zerban, they're going to wrestle in a dual meet and then at conferences, so they have at least two more. Not that makes it right, but they're going to be able to wrestle. So you'll get to see who wins that one later in the season. So that's the one I'm not as concerned about. And plus Iowa State brought their whole lineup. They didn't leave guys home because they were a little banged up. Not everyone on that team right now is 100%. Like, that's just high level D1 wrestling. That's not possible. So all those guys came to compete. They competed hard until they probably weren't physically able to, so I'm giving Coach Dresser benefit of the doubt here, at least for now.
I don't know. I would like to give him the benefit of the doubt. When you look at and not just him, but when you look at the medical forfeits across the board, like, a lot of them seem to be conference related. Like, you look at Frost and Larkin, they're going to hit again. Waters and Zerban, they're going to hit again. Frost and Larkin, the other ones, they're going to hit again. And the fact that those two were opposite, that's kind of weird. But Soldano and Nietenbach, they're going to hit again. Like, they're all going to see each other again. So it makes you wonder how much of it is actually injury related versus, this is going to have a major effect on seeding come conference time and, potentially NCAA time, and why take that risk? And that's just kind of the reality that we've had the last few years, is that that's what we're seeing a lot of. And it's not, I don't know, it sucks, but it's our current reality.
And I think that's why people are so mad is because it is our current reality, to the point where it used to not be that way, where if somebody was medical forfeiting out in the finals, it was rare. And you were like, oh, something is really wrong. And now when you hear about it, everybody automatically goes to, seed protecting and not wanting to hit a guy that you're going to wrestle multiple times, and, making sure that when you do wrestle that guy, it's on your terms and you're prepared and all these other things. So while I understand of just like, hey, listen, I've wrestled such and such matches this entire weekend. I need a break. It doesn't matter if I win this tournament or not. Like, one, yes, it does matter because, as Claunch pointed out, these are now losses that hit your record. But two, like, wrestle the match. Like, this is what rivalries are made of or made from, is hitting the same guy multiple times. So it sucks that we are seeing a number of potential conference matchups not go down right now, especially when it looks like, obviously, if one guy is proclaimed the winner, he was ready to wrestle. The other one, whether banged up or whatever, was not. So, like, let's keep the action going. And it sucks to not have a final happen. But before we get out of here, we gotta, out of the CKLV recap of this week's show, we gotta go over to Claunch to talk Purdue. He's got his Purdue hat on, and he took a lot of the Purdue guys to win it. We know how Joey Blaze did, but let's go to the Purdue man himself. I know sometimes he's a Michigan man, other times he's a Purdue man. What were your thoughts on Purdue at CKLV?
I mean, Joey Blaze got the job done. It didn't look super pretty at the end of it, but at the end of the day, he did win the tournament, and we kind of all predicted that. So, and up until the finals, he looked pretty good. And he is adjusting obviously to a new weight class. We've all talked about how he's pretty giant anyway, and like should fill in just fine. And he appears to be doing that. I believe, if I am correct, Stony Buell took what, fourth?
Check
it out now.
Sixth. That's right. Oh yeah. Okay, so they had sixth, and then I think Brody Bauman took eighth, and then Benadia took seventh, if I remember correctly.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah. Which that's a pretty good tournament. We talked a little bit about how strong their lineup is, kind of top to bottom. They've got some pretty tough wrestlers in there, and we can't get excited about this tournament being one of the tougher ones on the schedule, and then scoff at teams when they have a champion and a couple placers. Like, that's pretty decent considering what Purdue wrestling was several years back, right? I mean, I don't think they've ever had a national champion. They've had several finalists with Matt Ramos and Flieger, and obviously Blaze last year. Probably a couple before that, maybe. I'm not sure, but I think that might be the whole list. But point being, like, it's not a program that has this long, rich tradition, but they have been building something pretty consistent, if not, super high end there. And again, they had a champion. They've got a guy who's going to be in the mix at 165 for another final spot. It's hard for me to come on here and be like, and could potentially knock off Mitchell Messenbrink, because I don't know. I'm a huge Joey Blaze fan, but it seems like a weird thing to say. It doesn't feel right coming out of my mouth,
The words don't form correctly.
You said.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other thoughts on anyone at the tournament, ACC wise, Robbie?
Nothing else big ACC wise. I mean, I think you got to feel good about Stanford, where they're at with some of their younger guys. We know they're going to have a really strong team, and it was good to see like Posada and Consiglio and Valencia, for that matter, to get some good matches and get good results going into the second half of the season.
Yeah. Austin, EIWA. Anyone else that we didn't mention?
No one really EIWA related.
What happened to Wask in the finals? Wask.
Yeah, he lost to who was it? Schubert. Yeah, Schubert had a nice run, man. I think.
Dude, he really did. He really did.
I mean, Wask took him down pretty easily, and then couldn't take him down again. So I'm not sure if Wask just kind of slow played that one, and wasn't attacking the full match. But he was pretty dominant before that. Had a one takedown win over Conley. I was going to mention although I hate what happened with it, but Eli Griffin had a
That's some
nice outing
bullshit.
at second place at 141. But yeah, what he
Should
did
have
in
been
Manville,
DQ'd. Fuck that
what he did in
noise.
Manville was pretty bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
I saw some of his teammates and the coach, on social media form, like backing him up, like, hey, it's wrestling, heat of the moment, but like, yeah,
Not fucking wrestling. You don't throw somebody out of
nah,
bounds on
That's not
fucking
wrestling.
concrete.
yeah. And
Yeah.
then he smiled after it, so like he kind of knew what he was doing, and yeah, that was. I could kind of see the argument if he like acted all shocked and like upset, but like he smiled at it and like walked away, and it was like, yeah, your reaction to that was not very heat of the
Yeah.
moment type of excuse to me, but
Also,
was a
overall,
yeah,
good
dick move.
tournament.
heat of the moment. Like you've wrestled how many fucking matches in your life? Like this is
Yeah.
a big match, sure, and like it's physical, and I get it, but like you you walked over there and then threw him on the ground.
Yeah, he didn't just
After the
drop him,
whistle
he
blew
threw him.
out of off the mat, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
you can't justify that and say that that was any sort of continuation. Like you can see the decision being made to walk that out of bounds. Fine, walk it out of bounds and get the stall call. You don't dump him on the fucking concrete afterwards. It's not. That's not okay.
No.
And like, where's the ref in that too? We're taking
Shit
team points
officiating.
away and giving misconduct points for throwing a fucking headgear, and then
Yeah.
that happens, and it's like nothing. What are we doing here?
Yeah. As we've seen a number of times, the referees don't particularly know how to act, essentially. Before we move on, we were talking about the clip that Piles posted to his Instagram of the Zeth Romney match. Absolute wild finish. Just wild finish. One, I didn't, and Robbie, I'm going to come to you because we talked about this offline and you gave a really good explanation of all of it. I can't believe that they actually looked at the sequence, but then I can't believe that they actually awarded a stall warning for 2 points in this match to basically end it. Like I said, Robbie, you gave a good explanation of like why they even looked at the sequence. What was your take on that?
So my understanding is that they challenged something. I don't know specifically what it was, but something earlier in the sequence of before they went out of bounds, before the wrestling went out of bounds and it was stopped. While they're reviewing, they can look at and call anything that they see within the entire sequence of what they're reviewing, even if it's for or against whomever is, requested the review. They felt as if it was a stall on Romney, which would have been his fourth because he had a warning and 2 points already given. So that would have been his fourth stall and 2 penalty points. So he had riding time. So he would have been up 1. Even the scoreboard was tied. It was like 8-8, but he had riding time. So it would have been 9-8 him, 9-8 Romney. And then it was ended 10-9 the other direction after the 2 stall points. And it was given with like 1 second left in the third. It was just a weird call. And like initially he called it 1 stall penalty point, but then he got corrected himself that it was 2 because it was his 4th call. It was just bad officiating in general. And I said something about it early in the tournament that I still don't know what the fuck stalling is, and I don't think that most people do. Like we don't ever generally know how things are going to be called. It seems like they're so reliant on counts and out of bounds calls now that they're not calling just normal ass stalling. And then we get a situation like this where it wasn't called in the moment, but then it's called in a review, and then they didn't get the right number of points, and it's not a good look. And it's not a good look for the officials. It's not a good look for a match to end that way. It's just not. It's not. We should expect better than that.
Yeah, we've talked about stalling a number of times and the lack of consistency. I think it was even like the first week of the season. We brought up how inconsistent stalling was. And then we also talked about shot differential and how you have one guy taking all the risk and another guy who's not. Mainly, we were talking about the Iowa matches, but no matter what it is, like that's traditional stalling. You see a guy that is continuously risking and taking shots and trying to score some points, and you see another guy that is actively being defensive. not taking shots, blocking off, trying to tie up, not trying to set something up. So the fact that there's such inconsistencies with stalling is insane at this point. But it's also the beast that they created, because they turned it into an action call going out of bounds, and there was so much focus on that when the match is actually going on in the center of the mat and you've got one guy backing up, and it's not, well, maybe it's not blatant, but you've got one guy taking all the shots and the other one is just being defensive, they've forgotten to call that stalling as well, because they're just looking for them to go out of bounds and decide whether or not it's stalling or an action call. But like in this situation, the fact that he allowed the challenge and looked at the whole sequence and said, during that sequence, there was stalling that I missed. And I believe they were in overtime at this point, or in the third period. It was very late third period, right? Like it's just ridiculous. It really is absolutely ridiculous. Awesome. What were your thoughts on this situation? I know I sent you guys the clip before we came on. What were you thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we were talking, we don't think you can review a stall call, but if you throw a challenge brick and challenge maybe he stepped out, let's review it, and then they happen to see the stall call, they can award that. Part of me, I think I see why, maybe is because they want to get the stall calls correct. And when it's
still stupid,
when it's a coach's challenge, it goes to a third party. So they're having a third ref look at it. But I still don't like the idea that you can do that. I just think that's bizarre to me. And, let the call stay on the mat, let it stick. But back to like your stalling call, what is normal stalling? There's nothing more infuriating to me when there's one wrestler doing all the action and they go out of bounds 2-3 times in a row. And then that same thing happens, but the guy going out of bounds just turns around and shoots the other guy out. And then it's stalling because he shot that guy out when the other guy was doing all the action, So again, that's a situation that should be a normal stall, because you're playing the edge, you're backing up, you're not moving forward. You see that happen a lot, but it's just, again, refs have a hard job. I think they're making it harder with this edge stalling call. Just go back to normal stalling, and then if it's blatantly obvious, call it. But that I feel like you open a can of worms there, because what's blatantly obvious, right? So they have a tough job. I like to stick up for them, but I think we all need to get better, make something more standardized, and make it consistent across the board. I don't know how to do that though.
Let's not forget, one of the other times they're allowed to call stalling is with 5 seconds left.
Yes.
They love giving that first warning with 5 seconds left.
When it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. It's their favorite thing to do. Yeah.
It's almost like they, in that same vein of not looking for traditional stalling where a guy is either backing up, and I mean, they're looking for it in the most blatant situations or in the most gray area situation, like going out of bounds like they did there. But then the drop down to a leg, we're going to count and you're going to get hit with stalling. Guy standing up, we're going to count and you're going to get hit with stalling. Hooking and like anchoring on an ankle. We've seen that a couple of times already this year. So if it's not like something blatant like that, they're only looking at it for, and then on top of that, just like out of bounds calls. So it's like out of bounds, and then all the other things that they told you was stalling. So they at least have that to back it up. And it's not like, this is just my opinion, you're stalling. They have concrete evidence or reasoning behind saying somebody is stalling, almost like a cop out, like call stalling. If a guy is not taking any risk and he's not shooting, call it. In this situation though, just absolutely insane. I couldn't believe when I watched it that they actually allowed a challenge of that situation, because, I love Pendleton, but I couldn't hear what he had to say. But what was the explanation behind the challenge in the first place?
Also, it wasn't an immediate challenge. Like there was time there. So they honestly could have just said, no, it was too late to throw it.
Which
like, there's a lot of weird things in that whole situation.
Yeah, just weird. And like I said, I love Pendleton and would love to know, and maybe I'll shoot him a text or something, but I would love to know like what the explanation was of like, we're challenging XYZ, right? Because when they throw the brick, they ask you, what are you challenging? What did he say they were challenging? The sequence, because obviously they can't challenge stalling. So would love to know like kind of what that was. But either way,
Challenging
it's
that
still
bullshit. Go look at it.
that's probably what he said. That is probably exactly what it was. But all right, gents, I think we've beat CKLV to death. We can move on to some of the other wrestling that went on. And Austin, I'm gonna come to you. I know there's a couple of different upsets that you have in the doc that you wanted to talk about. So, what was the first one that you had seen, and what were your thoughts on the matches that you deemed upset worthy talking points for us tonight?
Yeah, I saw two All-Americans go down thanks to EIWA wrestlers. First one was Ethan Bergen of Army. I think it was Friday night. Took down Zan Fugit of Wisconsin. 7-4 overtime. Final takedown was really nice there. 7-4. I didn't see the whole match, but makes me believe he took him down twice. So to take down return All-American twice, that's good for Ethan Bergen. And I talked to Coach Nickerson before the season, and his goal was obviously to get Ethan Bergen on the podium. We've seen Bergen beat All-American type guys last year. I think he beat Anthony Noto early in the year, who was a return All-American. Just Bergen gets to NTAs and just, doesn't quite put it all together. He's a little banged up here and there, whatever it is. Just can't find his way on that podium. So they're working with him individually to, overcome that, whether it's a mental hurdle or physical hurdle, whatever it is. So that's a promising win for him. Bechtold of Bucknell beat Max Stout in the Bucknell versus Pitt duel. I think that was on Sunday. Again, 4-1 overtime match. Had a really nice takedown on the edge. Bechtold is, I think, a little under the radar. He was ranked 12 last year as a freshman. Second at the EIWAs behind the kid from Lehigh, Michael Beard. So might be the favorite to win 197 this year at EIWAs. I also noted Nathan Taylor Lehigh made his season debut. Not easy matches. He beat Dayton Pitzer of Pitt, and he beat Mirasola of Penn State, who he was like 50 pounds bigger than Mirasola. They look like two different weights, but solid performance by Nathan Taylor, coming back to two quality opponents and winning those. We should see Stanich in the next 2-3 weeks here. And Coach Santoro did say Crookham is expected to make his debut in January. Whether that's early January, late, I'm not sure. But that's what Santoro said in the Flow article that was written about Lehigh. So
has there been any update on whether or not he is actually hurt or not?
They are very tight-lipped over there, as you guys know about injuries. I did get the response that Matty Lopes is still in redshirting and will plan to redshirt. Lopes is the one that came onto the scene last year at conferences when Crookham was not able to go. So they're keeping him in redshirt. So to me, that makes me lean, Crookham will be back, or they're keeping their promise and keeping Lopes in redshirt, even if Crookham doesn't. But he's quoted saying that. So you got to believe Santoro when he says that. So, we'll see what happens. Lehigh did lose to Pitt again this year and this weekend, and they lost to Lehigh again pretty handily. But again, not their full lineup yet. But if they have a full lineup in March, they're gonna be a top 10 and maybe looking for a top 4, top 5 kind of team if everyone's healthy and ready to go. So I'm excited for them. Just can't wait for them to get healthy.
Yeah. Let's move to the ACC, at least back to the ACC. I know we talked a lot of ACC during CKLV recap, but we have Maddie Singleton pinning Lenny Pinto, as well as NC State losing a coach and a seasoned vet in their room in Kevin Jack, who's headed off to IMG. So, Robbie, what'd you make of, one, Singleton pinning Pinto, and then two, how many boxes of tissues did you go through? I know you love Kevin Jack.
KJ's a good dude. I think it's going to be an awesome fit for him at IMG. He's got a lot of potential as a head coach, and I think with the resources that IMG is going to give him and the leadership that Enoch's going to have in that program, it's going to be something they're going to build up really quickly. So, it sucks to lose him from the program because he's a great coach and a big part of that program. But I think it's going to be a really good fit for him in the long run. Would have been nice to see him kind of be able to finish with Ryan his little brother to see him off, but you get an opportunity like that, you got to take it. This weekend they looked fantastic. They kind of put it on Rutgers. It was a 27-11 final.
Something like
The
that, I think.
Yeah, 27-11. Vinny
Yep.
won by decision. The change in lineup that we saw is they put Troy Holman in for Zach Redding, who's been off to a really slow start. Holman's got a lot of potential, and prior to the transfer, that's kind of who we thought was going to be the starter. He lost a close one to Shaver in sudden victory. Then Ryan Jack lost to Oliveri. Biskins looked good. Arrington looked good. Will Dunny continues to look really good. And Singleton, I mean, we were talking beforehand, like he is significantly stronger than he looks.
Mm-hmm.
And that position he got into, that like kind of side body lock and step over, like kind of trip, then he pinched in with that body lock, is fantastic. And to be able to hold Pinto, who's damn good,
It's
to be able
insane.
to hold
Pinto's
him down
good there.
and
Yeah.
yeah, he was great positioning, really strong to hold that position and get the pin. The celebration was fantastic. I mean, seeing Vinny riding on Pat Pop's back, that's pretty funny. And then the chest bump, and there's some really good pictures. Rachel, their uh, SID or not SID, yeah, media person. I don't remember what her title is, but she got some good pictures of the whole thing. So awesome stuff there. Biggest story for me though, other than the Singleton pin, is Trumbull's back. He made his season debut and looked great in the process. Beat Hunter Katka, who's familiar foe because he's been at Virginia Tech the last 3 years. Transferred to Rutgers this year and ended the duel with a major over him 9-1. Looked fantastic, and no knee brace that I saw. Maybe I was focusing more on his lack of a mustache, but looked really solid. Excited to
Yeah,
have him back.
those of us that been riding on the Trumbull train for a long time
Hey, look,
couldn't
you may
wait.
have got him in the draft, but I still beat your ass this week. So
Yeah, you did. I was more focused on the fact that Isaac Trumbull was coming back, so I really wasn't that focused on my fantasy team. I was, focused on those things. You know how it
Just got to
works
conduct
when.
the Trumbull train.
Yeah, I mean, when you're such a huge fan, I had to make sure that my best Trumbull triple-breasted suit was out of the cleaners
did you wear
all
your warm-up singlet all weekend in celebration?
all weekend. It was
Don't wear it.
baggy underneath that really baggy triple-breasted suit because there's no way I'm that big. But yeah, it was there. It was all there. And I had another collared shirt underneath that singlet. So it was the collared shirt, the singlet, and then dress shirt, and then suit. That was the full look of the weekend. And then I was wearing those shoes as well.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean,
It really brings it together.
it
Ties the
really
room together.
did. I mean, it's a red suit. So it looked good. It was awesome. Honestly, looked like a stick of big red going to prom. But no, honestly, it's in all seriousness, it's awesome to see Trumbull back in the lineup. I know that we were looking forward to him being back on the mat. Really sucked how he got injured last year and busted up his knee and could barely do anything at the ACC tournament, and then looked obviously a little bit better when it came to the NCAAs, but just hobbled on that knee. But good to see him back. As we said, Matty Singleton, just a terror, right? Just like crunching, absolutely crunching that body lock and flipping Pinto straight to his back. Matty Singleton, definitely a guy to watch out for. He's been doing very well. And as you said before we got on here, Robbie, doing it all with basically one hand too.
Once he's finally at the right weight, he's shown that what he can do, bumping up and going down a weight class to fit in the lineup. It just last year is finally at his optimal weight and got All-American, and just kind of continuing everything this year.
Yeah. I wanna hear from Austin and Kevin about Kevin Jack heading to IMG. Austin, you first. What were your thoughts on the news when you heard about Kevin Jack leaving NC State to coach at IMG?
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Seems like he'll be a good coach. I think that's a good opportunity for him. My only question is he making that move now? That's not after the season. And If so, why not wait till after the season? Because IMG doesn't have a team right now, right? Or am I
They
incorrect?
don't, but they're starting to recruit for next year. I think it might not be next year. I think it's a year from now. They're looking at actually having a team. So maybe not next season, but the season after.
Yeah.
They're still building a lot. I know they've been announcing coaches and recruiting coordinators and all kinds of things that they want to get done. And they've also on their Instagram, they have posted that they do have some recruits that will be headed to IMG next year. So that has happened where they do have some of these wrestlers that will be part of that first team at IMG. But um, I I honestly think it's great for him. I think it's great for IMG that they have somebody like Kevin Jack who has been on the recruiting trail for as long as he has been and is so tied into, I mean, obviously a very great program in NC State, and seeing that he was really part of a lot of the resurgence, or at least like the build at NC State and what they've been doing there. So I think it's a great fit. I'm happy for him. I had a chance to see him at Elite Eight duels, and he was there recruiting, obviously for NC State, but I'm sure he's got his eye on a number of these high schoolers and thinking, that would be a great kid to have in my lineup. So he's been on the recruiting trail a ton. He knows how to get those things done, and now being at a different level with it, I think he's going to be really, really dangerous. Claunch, your thoughts on Kevin Jack to IMG?
Yeah, Kevin Jack was one of my favorite wrestlers to watch at North Carolina. He's my second favorite tall, skinny Kevin.
Don't
Yeah,
get
NC
that
State.
wrong.
Sorry,
You
NC
get
State. Yeah.
a lot of people
my
angry.
apologies. My apologies, NC State. Kevin Garnett being my favorite tall, skinny Kevin, and Kevin Jack being my second favorite. So,
I don't think
but
KJ can dunk.
I wouldn't put it past him. I bet he can.
I think he might be tall enough.
Yeah, he seems aerodynamic. But no, I think it's a great fit. I think when you're looking to bring somebody in for one of these kind of academy things, it's important that they're accomplished and still relevant enough in the eyes of some of these kids who can, watch them compete, right? And I don't know how many of them are, we're watching a ton of high level college wrestling and now just getting ready to go to this academy, but you can YouTube him, right? Like he was an awesome, fun, exciting wrestler. But point being, like, yeah, you can't get somebody who's, old, I guess, for the lack of a better term. You want to get somebody who can relate to the kids, who's going to be, high energy, and is going to have an impact. And obviously, having familiarity with the rest of the staff there is going to go a long way too. So I think that's going to be great.
Yeah, good fit. Looking forward to seeing what comes out of IMG. I know there's a whole host of people that they've been announcing as being either on staff or recruiting coordinators or whatever else. And that place it's run like a college, for any of you.
It costs what a college costs. I just saw the enrollment price. Woo,
yeah.
Funny.
Yeah. For those of you that listen to or watch the interview that I did with Enoch, and he talks about the resources and how they really do cater to the kids and make sure that those kids have the support and just like full weight of the school behind them to do the things they need to do, because everyone is on the national scene. Everyone is being looked at by, the Division I football coaches or Division I basketball coaches. I mean, hell, when I had a chance to go there, this was, I think, 15 years ago. Like there were kids that potentially are probably on the PGA Tour right now. Because we would get there early in the morning. I was there for a 7-on-7 football event, and you'd see kids that were like 10 years old out on the golf course, chipping putts or what, everything, like in the morning. And it was just like, it was incredible, right? Their moms are driving around their golf carts and, handing him a little mini 9-iron, and he'd go to work, right? But it was just like such an incredible place to be. And just the resources, even back then, 10, 15 years ago, were incredible. And now they have so much more behind them that they're doing at IMG. And, Enoch talked glowingly about all the support that he has for being the director of wrestling, and I'm sure that the full weight of that will be behind Kevin. And interested to see if his brother follows him once he's done, or if he continues to compete, or maybe even taking his spot on that NC State staff now that it's open, and seeing what kind of happens. So, but no, really happy for IMG, really happy for Kevin Jack and Enoch and the rest of the staff that are getting those guys. Any other thoughts? Any other highlights? Anything else that needs mentioned? Claunch, I know you always have a pretty extensive notepad where you've got a lot of things in there.
I do actually. So CMU versus Bellarmine on Sunday. I was kind of watching / listening as we were coming back from Ohio. And I don't know who it is, so I'm sorry. But whoever was calling like the match for Bellarmine for ESPN Plus had so much energy and excitement, like just was so pumped. And for a duel that like it was like 30-6. Like it was not a particularly close duel. But hey, shout out to that guy for being like super into it the entire time. And like, if I wasn't such a homer, I probably would have appreciated it more. But I was like, man, he's just like really into this, and it's not going great. But shout out to that guy. He did a good job. So
yeah. Austin, anything in the IWA we didn't cover already?
No, I think that was pretty much it. Yeah, American. Yeah, they lost a duel to Maryland. But yeah, I mean, I got to give a shout out to Bucknell. I mean, they keep losing these really tight duels. They lost a close one, Oklahoma, VTech. They wrestled someone else that was really close. They just lost again to Pittsburgh by 5. And all these matches are losing. They're like 1-point matches, 2-point match. They're just so damn close. They just can't do it. So Bucknell's they're wrestling really tough, and the record may not show it. So always going to give a shout out to my Bucknell guys because they're doing something good up there. Just so close every time. Doesn't really count, I know, but when they put in the work and they finally get that win, it's going to pay off, I think. So yeah, that's all.
I've been really impressed by Bucknell anytime I've watched them this year. I think they have the makings of a team that can have some guys make some noise at the tournament because they've been tested. They've put the schedule together to face some solid competition early in the year, and they're going to be better because of it. And they've certainly got some guys who are on the cusp of All-American.
Yeah, they had 2 round of 12 guys last year, and they're back this year.
You could see them make a run here.
Excited.
Robbie, anything in the ACC that we failed to mention?
Not a lot of big stuff. Virginia was up at East Stroudsburg for 2 D2 duels, so they had all their non-starters wrestling. Blanked them both, looked good. Not a whole lot to report there. Stanford was at CKLV. Virginia Tech was split between CKLV and George Mason. Sonny Sasso had a phenomenal weekend at George Mason, won the title there. I think got bonus points. Tech Faller pin every match. Tom Crook made the finals. I think DeSante made the finals or the 3rd place match. Good stuff there. Didn't send a large contingent either place. UNC was off this weekend. They've got somebody coming in this week that was good. Look at their schedule. They have a good match this week. And that's about it. Pitt had Lehigh and Bucknell this weekend. Kind of mixed results. They were won both of them, but certainly looked better in the Lehigh duel than they did in the Bucknell duel.
Nice. Well, that's everything we got. That is a wrap for episode 34. As I said, the Charles Barkley episode. Hopefully you guys enjoyed everything that we discussed throughout our recap of CKLV, as well as around some of the different conferences. If you think we missed someone, throw them in the comments. As always, we love getting any emails or DMs or comments on YouTube, Spotify, wherever this is posted and you're listening to it. Keep those things going. To wrap things up, and I mean that pun intended, I do want to give one final shout out to our listeners. As Everyone is talking about their Spotify Wrapped. For podcast people such as us, Spotify also does give us a Spotify Wrapped, and we had 147,000 minutes listened to in this first season of the podcast. So shout out to everybody that listens, literally just on Spotify, or at least watches on Spotify as well. We appreciate the comments that we've had. We appreciate the listens. It's amazing how many people are listening to everything that we're doing literally as soon as we post it, and how you're listening from start to finish. So I'm sure you'll probably hear this shout out and know that it is definitely for you. So we appreciate you guys listening and watching the Quad Pod, and we'll see you again on Thursday. Peace.